All right, everybody. Adam back with another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast. And all you pros, all you experts out there, turn this off right now. You have the world's worst bow hunter and the okayest hunter together again to talk a little bit about this season. And tonight, I really kind of want to talk about like goals and kind of like community, because I think like together our mindsets are somewhat on the same trajectory when it comes to hunting and hunting media and all this I don't know, all this grandiose peacocking I think that goes on with social media and some of the stuff surrounding, what is a very wholesome, family activity for most of the people that would listen to this. So I've got Eric Clark, many hats, but the Okayest Hunter podcast host, the Okayest Hunter uh, brand, right here in the flesh. So, how are you doing tonight, Eric?
Doing all right. Yeah, we were just chopping it up before we hit record. So if I'm a little crabby, because of kids and allergies, mostly allergies. I love my kids. They can rub you the wrong way, though. Holy cow. So they're getting put to bed, and we got daylight savings that just happened. So I'm actually fairly rested, which is nice, but good to be here. I think it's been a while since you and I have done this. I think it was in person at ATA and maybe once or twice after that. I don't recall. And that was a couple years ago already.
Yeah, and it's hard because it's always one of those things where it's a phone call and we just talk and end up like, I got a quick thing for you, and then it's a half hour later and it's like, oh shit, like I got to get back to work or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just kind of the way that it goes. Um, so how's your season going so far? Like this year, like I guess going into the season, like what were your goals and kind of where are you at with that?
That's a loaded question. It it's a really tough season because I'm trying to do something I've never done before, which is hunt less than I've ever hunted before. And I don't know if people realize how hard that is. And I got a family, I got three kids and a wife and a day job and a bunch of other stuff going on. And obviously I've done it all myself. It's fine, but this is the least amount I've hunted in my entire like hunting, career, life, whatever. So that's actually been really hard. Part of that's been because of travel for family and events, and we inside of 1 month we went to Florida and Washington for family stuff. So it's like, all right, well, I can't really take that much more PTO to go chase the wily whitetail. I just took, almost 3 weeks of PTO inside of about a month. Um, so I don't want to like overdo it, especially I work in the outdoor industry, so like this is a busy time of year. I have a lot of work to do and a team to work with. So uh that's really hard. I've only been out as of this last week and I got two more hunts in. Up until then, I was only out two other times. So a total of four hunts this year. I hunted right before we left for Florida in the early season. I had an encounter with a doe. I was gonna shoot her, it just didn't happen. Hunt from the I was hunting from the ground for that hunt, and then I did another hunt, and it hailed and lightninged and stormed like crazy. Wasn't supposed to hit where I was, and it did, and it got really dicey. Saw one doe. She never came to my shooting lane. I think it was a doe fawn. Right as the rain cleared up, so it's like a really nice hunt once that ended. But I was soaking wet and freezing cold, and not terrible. I had some cell cams hung, and there's like three really big bucks running around this public area. And since then, my cell cams have run out of battery and stopped working, and I have to kayak way out to get to the spot. So it's like they're not working. I took one of them out, and then the other one's still hung up, but it's dead now. So now I'm back to square one, anyways, which is how I normally hunt without any intel. So I'm like, cool. I've lost all eyes on the woods. And I went out twice this last weekend. We got one of our videographers is in town. So I was like, all right, well, might as well get after it. So I sighted my rifle in yesterday morning. I'm not a big morning hunter per se when it's someone it's a tricky spot to get into. So I got out twice, saw a deer on Friday evening on a hunt. A small buck came out at the literal last legal minute of shooting light. And then that was it. Like there's no opportunity. And he would have tempted me hard because I was on the ground. He was at 30 yards and was going to potentially close in. And that didn't happen. And then I hunted yesterday, and it was about the most beautiful day of hunting I've had all season. It was beautiful weather. The wind was perfect for what I was doing. Got about 25 feet up into a tree. I'm glassing all around me in fields. I can see in the distance, and we can see pretty far. And I didn't see a single damn deer the whole entire day. Last light, nothing. I was like, what? I've seen deer every sit. I know they're back here. This is not pressured. There's no other hunters in the area. Like, what the hell's going on? So that was an anomaly. I was like, well, whatever. It was a great day to be out. I felt amazing. Like my mind finally felt pretty rejuvenated, but nothing to talk about for hunting wise. Like I haven't tagged anything. And now I'm looking at the next couple weeks, and there's like I might be lucky to get out one more time, and that's going to be pressing the issue with my wife because she's got like 1 or 2 week breaks in between her classes for her program that she's in, and it starts up again tomorrow. So now it's like dad duty goes into double gear, and it's going to be tough to be like, hey, hon, I know you got a lot going on and I got a lot going, but I'm going to leave to go to the woods to go hunting. So like it's been a tricky year. So to your question, how's my hunting season going? Not ideal, but
So
it's a shifting in priorities in a season of life, and I'm trying to make peace with it as best I can. And things aren't a light switch in life, like they never are. It takes the mind a minute. Like when you become a dad, your identity changes. You're no longer just some dude or a husband. You're a freaking dad. Like you can't just go party with the boys. You got a kid to take care of. You know what I mean? Like things change. So I'm in a season of life right now that is making hunting tricky.
so I in that I think there's a lot of that. I mean, I feel like,
Yeah.
from a podcast standpoint or like a outdoor industry standpoint, everybody thinks that, oh, you get to hunt all the time, you get to do all the stuff, or you're always around it and blah blah blah. But I think that that's what a lot of guys are. I mean, we got one of the guys in our Patreon group who's like same thing. Like I'm driving to this family thing, I'm doing all this family stuff. I got these kids and all the stuff, and it's just the one thing that I want to do. And there's a balance there, and you obviously follow along with like the Dan Infalt stuff, and he talks about all the things that he missed, when he was out chasing deer and killing deer and all of these things. Um, and when you talk about that buck that came in and that sort of like really would have tempted you, like that's one of the things that I wanted to like ask you about in this whole like okayest hunter thing, right? So when you started out, just like me being like, okay, well, I'm the world's worst bow hunter, and that's going to be a way to, kind of set the tone as far as where, like, I'm not the authority on anything. I'm we're starting out at this ground zero, and we're gonna grow together. Um, but as the okayest hunter and having less time and less things, like, where are your expectations, and has that changed? Because you're in Wisconsin, and if I remember correctly, it's like a 1 buck state, or maybe 1 buck with a bow, 1 buck with a rifle. So that changes things when you only can shoot 1 buck. um but even in Michigan, it's like, how many guys shoot 2 bucks, how many guys, all of this sort of stuff. So from that, like, okay mindset, and now being in the space that you're in, like, do you feel more pressure, or do you think like, now I only have so many sits, so I'm going to go out
Um,
there and have fun?
yeah, it's fun. It's just fun. My kids are like they're the ones that I care about. And they've proven to me that like they don't care if it's big, little, they don't, it's deer, a deer's a deer. And they're happy to have the meat, and they're happy to have the experience of like, seeing it when I bring it home and stuff. Um, yeah, the only thing that gets me is I'm a 38-year-old man, so it's kind of like, posting with a little dinky buck. Sometimes it does feel like, man, if you're a man, you should have a really big one. Like, why'd you shoot that thing? And it's like, I said on our podcast the other day, I'm like, why don't you audit my life? And then you'll understand why I shot that deer. And it's public land. I'm working hard for it. I'm in some cases I'm in this tree in the saddle, or I'm on the ground because like the area I'm hunting, there aren't shit for trees. It's super thick. And there are really big bucks running around back there. I missed an opportunity on a 150-inch deer last year that I came within 10 yards of. And like for me, I'm in the red zone. I know how to play the game now. And it's that fine tuning stuff that I suck at. Like to kill him is really hard. To maybe to even get close to him is really hard. But I'm in the like I can't kill him part. Like I'll find something to mess up in the red zone, and it's just tricky. Like knowing when to draw back or all that kind of stuff. But so yeah, when that little one came by, if he would have showed up a couple minutes before at the last possible minute to shoot him and would have worked his way through, I would have shot the shit out of that deer, and it would have been the most exciting hunt ever because it would have been like a 5 yard shot from the ground, and it would have been a nice canoe ride back looking at some brown fur in front of me. Like it would have just been great. So there's no pressure from like I don't care about the industry. I'm in the industry. I see what goes on. I don't give a shit about any of that. Like it doesn't have an, in fact, if nothing else, it gives me more grace to be like, of course the OKS hunter shot a spike buck. Like that makes sense. When I shoot the big ones, or they're like, "Oh, you guys got to change your name here. What the hell's going on?" Like the one year I shot the 140 behind me, and Derek shot a 170, and they're like, "Whoa, you guys, you sure you're the okayest hunters?" And we're like, "Look, there's a lot of mistakes that went into these hunts. Let me tell you. I cut my finger the week before I shot that deer and missed a 6 pointer on public land. So like I shot at a 6 pointer." Like it was the most exciting hunt of my life, and then I just happened to redeem myself with a bigger buck because that's the one that showed up. Like it would have been another six, and I would have shot it all day long. I actually did think it was a 6 pointer, so that's kind of funny. It's the opposite of ground shrinkage when I walked up on that thing. So no, to answer your question, I don't really care at all. I'm out there to have fun. Like I mentioned, I hunted yesterday and I didn't see anything, but my mind hasn't felt that cleared up in a while. Like I needed that hunt to like feel sane. It was great. So just to be out and have a dedicated day where I knew I could just go fuck around in the woods and try to chase some whitetail, that was good for my soul. I think, people say, well, of course you say that, only people that don't shoot big bucks say that. It's like, oh, all right, well, that's your priority, I guess. Like I'm after a big buck. I'm also after any buck that I think I can get. If it gets Jared Scheffler said this on the podcast once. He said, he didn't say this on the podcast. He said this on one of his shows. There's his series, the Whitetail Adrenaline stuff. He said, I think the camera guy had asked him like, if this buck's big enough, are you gonna shoot him? He's like, if I feel excited about the hunt, I'll shoot him. Like it could be a small buck, a big buck. If I'm excited about the hunt, I'll shoot the buck. And I was like, that's a really great quote. And he wasn't trying to like say something quote worthy. He was just saying stuff. And that quote was like probably my favorite thing I've heard any hunter say. Like if I'm excited about the hunt, I'll shoot the deer. And so that's kind of probably how I would sum up how I felt the other day and how I usually feel. So
Yeah, I think, you know, I, I'm in a different world when it comes to 99% of the hunters out there because I just love hunting so much and I like shooting deer. I guess I like shooting at deer with my bow. I've literally, you laugh, but I've literally shot 10 arrows at deer this year. Like 10,
yep,
10.
that's a lot. That's a
Like
lot of opportunities, man. Good for you.
a
That's
lot of them were on the same deer, but that's the that whole longbow thing. But I'm just out there having fun. And I think, you know, I'm getting to a point like, so we're getting ready to go to Tennessee, my buddy and I. And I was thinking about it outside of like before the podcast and last year in Kansas. Like I've not shot a deer out of state and I've went on a lot of trips and I've had a lot of deer in front of me and I've thought, oh no, that's not big enough, or I'm here for something bigger, or like whatever. And like I'm trying to like work through it because this year, like if it was in front of me, because I had the stick bow, like I was shooting. And then I went to the UP and I didn't want to come home with nothing because I went up there to shoot deer. And so I shot one with the compound. And but I'm like thinking out of state, I'm just like, well, what happens if like one of those little bucks comes in and it's like, I don't know, I really like shooting them. It's that's hard, but I just really enjoy it. And I think like every deer that I shoot, that I track, that I go is all those smiles. It's that enjoyment. It's not like I'm a sociopath or I like to kill things just to kill them.
yeah.
Um, but you know what I'm saying? And I think especially this year, bringing out the trad bow has I mean, I'm 12 years old again, just flinging arrows
That's
like at
cool.
everything that walks. But I felt like that's like radiated into like some of the other people in my circle who are either getting out there with their stick bows and changing like what they think is acceptable as far as like, oh, I have to only shoot this class of deer or like whatever. And like the enjoyment that comes with that track, that comes with that camaraderie, that comes with the beers in the tailgate and all that sort of stuff. Like every time we're worried about what somebody else thinks or what social media thinks or like whatever, um, we're robbing ourselves and our hunting buddies of those memories, your kids
Yeah,
of
yeah.
those.
What a weird emotion to feel shame of. Like, then don't do it. If you think you're gonna feel shameful about it, then don't freaking do it. Like, if I think I'm feel shame about shooting a spike buck, then I won't shoot the spike buck. But then, even in that essence, am I robbing myself? Like, why do I care? Just then don't even post it. Like, if you're not doing this stuff, like it's kind of there is some sort of like obligation, maybe. Like, did Eric kill a deer? Well, what was it? Where's the picture? Oh, that's what you got. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like yeah, to answer your earlier question, like I'm in a position where I owe our audience to like post about stuff. But if you're just you're not part of any of that. You don't have to do shit. I have a cousin that he'll send a text message of the deer he shot. That's it. Like he's not on Facebook with Grip and Green. He doesn't give a shit about any of that. He also drives up in a shitty old Honda Civic that's paid off, gets off of work, grabs his trad bow, slings it over his back, has no back. He's got a fucking knife in his pocket, and a headlamp for getting out. And that is it. And like there's nothing else that he cares about more than the chase. And he'll get him in within 5 yards and kill him from the ground. And it's a pretty epic hunt. I've tried that style with him a handful of times. So I didn't have the trad bow, I had my compound, but I'm doing what he's doing. And he's like, look, we get a deer. It's gonna be in like within 10 to 5 yards. And it's gonna be really exhilarating. Like he's like, do whatever you do. If you're feeling it, shoot it, kind of thing. Um, I say that to say, here's a question I'll pose to your listeners and us in this conversation. I want people to think about this. I don't know the answer, but I'm curious around the whole shaming and all that jazz. Like, do you think someone that shoots a small buck with a compound bow and posts it, let's just say they're an older man or whatever, because those are the ones that shouldn't be shooting those things, in quotation marks, or someone that has a giant 210-inch, typical whitetail on the ground and their crossbow is strewn across the body. Like, who's getting more flack? Because there's people that are pissed that, that guy with the crossbow, he's taking all the good ones. Oh, that guy with the compound, he's killing them before they get old. Like, people are just mad about stuff. Like, why we gotta be mad about it? Which one's more controversial? I don't know. Because like on one hand you got a big buck, but oh, you did it easy. And the other hand you got a small buck, but you could have gotten one bigger. It's like, where's the middle ground here? What is the fine line? And why do people have to have an opinion?
Yeah, I mean, well, the clip that I took of Bill off of the podcast that we did is like one of my favorite clips ever. And he's
I think I shared that one. It was pretty
yeah,
great.
yeah, but he's just like, shut up, shut up. We're all behind tags. We're all money's going to conservation. Like that's incredible. And it's
Yeah.
like, you know, I've it's been said a million times, but somebody just recently like came to the realization that was like around me, like in my circle. And they were like, maybe it was Matt Lair. He was like, who's going to care about my taxidermy when I'm dead? Like nobody. Like, I mean,
Yeah, because it's not your story. Like, I don't want if my dad's like, I mean, maybe if my dad gave me his bucks, I know their stories and him, it's sentimental. But anybody else, I don't want your freaking deer. Like, I don't
right.
want that. I
Like
don't
your
want that deer.
grandkids or whatever, they're not going to, I mean,
Yeah.
really, unless there's like something
By then they'll
wild
look all
about it.
weird. They all get weird. Like their noses get all narrow and
Right.
shit. They look strange.
Yeah. And, but that's the thing is like, why not just have those moments, those memories in the moment? Like, cause I feel like, everybody says like nobody cares what you killed last year or 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
Can you tell me who won
Like,
the Super Bowl last year?
no idea.
No fucking idea. Can you tell me how the last episode of Yellowstone went, or Breaking Bad, or like, no, you don't remember. Like we have such a short attention span of memory. You don't remember.
Right. And maybe that's why that couple hours in the stand, even if you're not seeing anything, because in a sense, like time is back to moving slow again. And
Hmm.
you're appreciating maybe not the squirrels, but you're appreciating the birds and the woodpeckers and the other things that are out there, and you're actually getting to time to your like free your thinking instead of. But I also think like I can see like a cartoon of a guy in the stand with a deer under him and like all the little bubbles of like it's too small, it needs another year, like go ahead and shoot him, like can't eat the antlers, all these different things that are going through our heads because of what the echo chamber that we live in.
Yep.
And I think I don't know, I think there needs to be more bills in the world saying shut up. Like if you want to shoot the deer, like
Yeah,
it
yeah, and
doesn't
that's
matter.
exactly
It's
it. And we talk about the hunter's journey a lot. Like, there's you just if people are at a different place, just respect the place that they're at on the journey. You don't know. Because they look 40, that doesn't mean they didn't learn how to hunt this freaking calendar year. Like, you just stop judging books by covers. Like, we learned this stuff as kids. Like, where'd all these lessons go? If you don't got anything nice to say, don't say it at all. Like, shut up, kind of thing. Like, if you worried about someone else's stuff, you don't have enough going on in your own life. That's what I think.
so with your like truncated time frame and all of that, obviously we over here are very focused on the archery season and bow hunting and really really focus on that. And sometimes I feel like we pigeonholed ourselves because like now if we shoot things with a gun, like it's not cool or whatever. um and I don't know, I think I last year my daughter shot one with a gun and it was pretty cool. It was fun. It was fun going out and doing that. But so for you, as you get into your rifle season and things like that, like, or is it just going to be like shoot some does, fill the freezer, go
Yeah,
on with my
yeah. Like,
year?
it's a scene from what is it? Billy Madison, where he's got the dodgeball. He's like, now you're all in big trouble. Like, that's the scene that goes into my head every single time. I'm like, look, if I haven't gotten one with my bow, and I've been having a struggle bus of a season, or like last year I missed out on a couple good ones or whatever, like, now I'm bringing the boomstick and now you're freaking dead. Like, now it's game over. So I shot a small basket rack 8 that's behind me here, the skull mount, with the gun last year. I was like, I was the first. There's a doe behind him. I didn't even care. I was like, I saw you first. My crosshairs were on you. Like, by the time I learned there was a doe, it was too late. I was already shooting that guy. Then I got into, like, super sniper mode, and I was ready to blast the doe, and I just was like, what am I doing? I need to shoot both deer, like psychopath. I should have, actually, because she presented such a great shot, and I was all fucking fired up. Um, just racking that bolt action, man. There's something about it. Sitting down on a ridge with the tree at my back, I love a gun season's just a different book on the same subject matter. Archery season's a very different, intimate, romantic, thing. And gun is like camaraderie, meat, and beer. Like, it it's not the same thing. But I do love it. For That's what got me into hunting, was gun. I didn't start with a bow. I started with a gun, and then I got into bow, and now I'm obsessed with that. And I'll probably go back into trad at some point. I shot trad when I was a kid and loved it. And I realized that it takes a ton of time, which I don't have, so I can't even consider picking up one of those things right now. It'd be pretty unethical of me to do. So, my compound bow dialed in. I decided my rifle in yesterday. It's like shooting a freaking, quarter at 100 yards, 3 shots in a row. I'm like, all right, well, I feel nice and confident that if I see a deer, it's going to die at 100 yards. And I don't shoot beyond 100 yards with my rifle, so it'll be good to go. Sniping deer is pretty fun too.
So I feel like you need to make the trip across the pond and come over for our Patreon hunt, because that is like what you just outlined for your gun season or for like what got you into it. I mean, I feel like and it goes into kind of like what I wanted to talk to you about was like community. Is that like, there I think there's a lot of guys like in our age group that don't have like deer camps anymore because about the time that we got into girls and all that stuff is like as soon as that's when the internet came, and then the
Yeah.
world sped up infinitely, and then there wasn't time for all this stuff. And if you were somewhere where there wasn't service or whatever, and I know you guys in Wisconsin are like a decade or so behind the rest of the world, but it's still similar. It's you guys got deer hunting in the Packers and then everything else.
Yeah,
um
you're right.
so I
Packers lost tonight. I don't want to talk about it.
to who
The
to who
freaking Lions.
oh, that's right, I forgot.
Yeah. God.
So but
All they
yeah,
want
so
to- Anyway.
so so like with our deer camp, I mean, this year we killed 8 little deer, no bucks, um in 4 days. And there was people who were drinking beer and whiskey and everything. And no, but everybody was there for hunting. They were there for camaraderie. If you wanted to hunt, you could hunt. And uh, with the okayest hunter mentality and like that kind of like hook to bring people in, like the inclusion type thing, like how has your like community like surrounding the podcast, like how is that built over the years? Because I mean, you rebranded and went to the okayest thing, and that, I mean, I have to imagine that inclusion has to bring in a great community, because you do your shoot, like brews and bows or something, suds and something, not whatever.
Yeah, yeah. The Foam Fest.
Yeah,
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 that idea. Yeah, it's definitely great. It was awkward at first because we were doing what I think a lot of people are doing. We weren't doing anything that different. We were just talking about tactics and how to kill big bucks and talking to all the same people that everyone still talks to today about how to do that and what they're. It was nothing that different. And as a result, we were just kind of like vanilla in the mix. Like where to hunt wasn't some standout brand. Like you got to listen to that podcast. You're gonna learn your. No one cared. Like it was fine. We had a small community. It was good. Um, Changing OK's Hunter, what felt awkward was that it was like it was awkward to start to change the narrative of the conversation, not around just killing big bucks. It just felt like this, it felt weird to literally do. I was like, and we're not gonna, it just felt strange. Now, we still do that, but that's not the focal point anymore. The focal point really is more like community. And then there is still quite an appetite for people to learn how to kill mature bucks. So we have a podcast network now. There's 12 shows on the network. There's 3 more on deck. Of the 12, one of them is, you might like the Tradbow one because the guy builds his own bows, the Boyer podcast with Matt Morris. He'd be a great guest for you. Is Dropping Pins hosted by Derek. Now, if you follow our YouTube, Derek Melkor, I joke all the time because it's me, Greg, and Derek that host the OKS Hunter podcast. Greg's like our gear guy, tinkerer. He'll like solder and weld things and build shit and like paper tune, knock tune. His he's into all the technicalities of things, and he's a woodsman. He's got good woodsmanship. Derek is like this bloodhound of a deer killer. Like I think he's the industry's best kept secret. I often say, like, if you ever watched the movie The Big Green as a kid, there's like the Knights team that's all good kids, and you have the Big Green, they all suck, but they have the one good player, and that one good player like fucks up the whole other good team. And he should probably just go play for them, but he's on the big, like Derek's like on the Big Green with us. Like he's our one good player on this shitty team. I'm like, why do you hang out with us? You could probably go like be with anybody else. Like we're not even your people. I don't mean that in one sense. He's a really great human and we're all get along. We're good friends, but he is a big buck killer. And he pays attention to sign in ways that I can hardly comprehend. But he started this Dropping Pins podcast to rather than talk about gear and tactics and terrain and thermals and buck beds, he's just interviewing all the same killers everyone else is talking to and asking, what was the aha moment? When did things change for you? When did you start to really think you figured it out? What happened? What did you notice? What did you see? What was the quintessential moment? And he's just teasing that out of these guys and extracting it and distilling it down. And I thought that's pretty cool. So there still is a way for people to get that, like, knowledge of maybe I'm further along my hunting journey and I still like these guys, but like now I can still get something from them and learn. For everyone else, it's, yeah, very much a lot of bullshitting and, we don't. I don't know. I feel like every single Tuesday we're just shooting from the hip, talking about whatever the hell we want to talk about. Like I'm not into, we'll talk to big name guests, but I don't care. Like for a while I got hopped up on that. I think you may have been at the ATA when I interviewed Michael Waddell, and I was pretty jazzed about that. You know, I kept thinking you talk to these big name guests and you get enough of them, and wow, I still see that happening. I think the Hunter podcast does that a lot. It's either a super controversial or really big guest. And I couldn't be running further in the opposite direction. I think I just want to be doing whatever we're doing. And I think if people enjoy that, they'll follow along. So the community part, I don't think a week goes by where I don't get a DM to the channel or the page that like, you know, thank you so much. You know, because of you guys, you know, I feel like I can tag this buck or do this thing. We just got one the other day that we were tagging the same post as Mark Kenyon because he's like, you guys like really changed things for me. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be thinking this way or doing these things this way. I wonder if I can find it. It might have expired. But it was like really heartwarming. And we get that all the time. It's really cool. So I'm proud of the community that we have and kind of how they think about us. And it seems like it's doing what it was intended to do. Just bring people together and having fun and, you know, kind of hunt your own hunt, fill your own tag kind of thing.
But then, like, circling back, does that make you feel like an obligation to shoot a small buck, or
No,
you know,
because
I guess
I got this guy here and there's like I'm not gonna not shoot a big one because I'm at a different stage of my journey. I have a lot
see,
of compounded knowledge from doing a podcast for several years. Like I intend to use that knowledge and do what I can. The only reason I'm convinced that with enough time anybody could figure this shit out. I really think if you could take if I could take a whole year off and just focus on hunting a big whitetail and get tags in multiple states, I don't want to say I guarantee I'm not that cocky, but if I couldn't figure it out, I would be like, really? You couldn't do it? You know, I think it could be it's a time thing. If I had enough time, I think it could happen. I'm so limited on time that it's just not that I'm not delusional. I think I told Kurt Geyer this. I'm like, I'm not delusional, dude. It takes time to kill a big buck. You have to scout in the off season. You have to have some sort of strategy. You have to have time in the woods. You have to like understand these animals and see what they're doing. I think you get lucky, and I'm happy to take luck. I'm not ashamed of luck on any hunt. I'm happy to take luck. I'll luck my way into a big buck any day of the week if I could. But if I was really trying to kill a big buck, you need to have some skill because they're really hard to kill. Um, I just I'm not an idiot. I know that takes time that I don't have. So I don't have the expectation when people are like, what's your goal? Are you gonna try to shoot a bigger one than last year? I'm like, no, I have less time than last year. Like I should probably shoot a smaller buck just because I have not put in the time to kill a big one. Like you know, just not how it works.
yeah, this year my goal was quantity.
Hmm.
So I want to kill 3 bucks this year. Killed one, and then I should have killed another one with the. I should have been tagged out within the first 10 days of the season on 100 inches of deer with the trad bow, and that stings. So I still got a bunch of season left, and then I'm going to Tennessee. So it was just like more so like about the opportunities, I think, than like setting a goal of like I want to kill bigger bucks or things like
Yeah.
that. But you know, I think that's one of those things, and what you talked about there with like, I feel like hunting is like you either got more money or you got more time or you got, you know, there's like the 3 buckets of, or you got lucky, but you have like these 3 buckets of like killing big bucks. Like you either got a ton of money and you go spend money with a guide or something, and
Hmm.
or you got a ton of
Because
time.
they put in the time. Like that's who your
Yeah,
money and time are a trade-off.
yeah.
Like if I want more time, maybe I'll have someone rake my leaves for me. Like I don't know, then I'll have more time to hunt that day. But the family stuff, that's not time I can get back or trade. I'm not trading that time. Like I need to be there for things for my kids right now. Like it's not up for debate, even in my own mind. Like I'm not. And actually, Dan Infalt, I think, said this when he was on the Where to Hunt podcast, or somewhere along the way, I heard him say this. He's like, he had a tinge of regret.
Mhm.
Like you said earlier, I miss things with my kids to do, and I'm like, I'm just not willing to make that trade. I don't care more about hunting than my kids, and that's not entirely true. I certainly think about hunting a ton, and I want to be hunting, and I'm with my kids. Like I'm not also like some like incredible dad. We're like, oh, but yeah, of course, I'm not going to go do it. My kids want to see me. They're sad, if I'm not around. Now, I'm really looking forward to the days when they're a bit older and not like completely dependent as a, 3-year-old, for example, where they can go do this with me and I can teach them and they're going to be along for the deer camp stuff and like whole different scenario. And I'm starting to introduce them and do those things. And I know you could probably start as early as you can. And just the way I'm hunting doesn't really lend itself that great to bringing a 5-year-old with you in the public land when you're really trying to kill something for real. Like it's tough. I don't know how Becca Garris does it. Baby
Yeah,
on her back,
that's
the
insane.
trad bow. Like she could, she's amazing. That's incredible. I'm like, no thanks. My kids aren't that still or quiet. Like
But those kids have been like on her back since they were born, and she's been
yeah.
shooting squirrels and shooting everything. Just taking her longbow for a walk and shooting does along the trail with a newborn like across her chest. I mean, that it's the way that they were.
Yeah,
The
so then I'm
the
like,
kids
oh,
were
am I
raised like
waiting too
that.
long? Yeah, it's like when do you get him in and all this stuff. So Derek's doing a good job. He's bringing his 7-year-old out and he's putting him in a stand and all this stuff. Like he's kind of right along for the ride on some of these hunts, but like maybe 1 or 2 a year, not the ones where he's really trying to get at it. You know what I mean? And for me, every hunt's I got to get at it hunt because I only get like 4 apparently. I
I,
might not have a 5th hunt this year before gun.
yeah, but do you believe in like that, like karma stuff? Like if you if you waste, quote unquote, waste a hunt to bring your kids out and just eat snacks and like whatever, that the next time you go out, like the deer woods or like ever, things may go better because
Oh no, no.
you're like, nope, like absolutely not. You're like,
Happy to
that's
do
it's
that, but
absolutely
I don't think the
wasted.
universe owes me a better hunt as a result of like foregoing one. No, because I've done the whole like let's bring my kids out with the squirrel calls and yeah, which is great. I
It did,
like
and it didn't
I
turn out.
felt, but like they fully thought it they were gonna kill a deer. One kid was like crying because he's like, we didn't kill one. I was like, no, there's like I didn't even expect we'd see one. You thought we were gonna kill one? Like okay,
Yeah.
4-year-old, of course. He's
Well,
like,
but I think that like I remember taking my daughter out when she was probably 4, and like it was a production. It was a whole damn day of like going to the store, picking out all the snacks, like doing the face paint. Like she was
that's
calling, she was
production.
blowing
Yeah.
a horn, and she's like, "I see one. There's one over there." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, yeah." Like see the antlers moving. I'm like, "Yeah, there's nothing over there." But like, okay, well maybe it'll come in, And then whenever it was time for she wanted to go in, like we were going in.
Yep.
But that like I think the earlier that you start doing that stuff, and like with her, and I feel like with kids is like really easy for like turkey season because it's warmer, for the most part, and especially if you do like an afternoon turkey hunt where it's just like whatever, you might see a deer, you might see something,
Yeah. Just
but
getting
same
out.
thing,
Yeah, that's
snacks
it.
and being able to make noise with calls and
Yep.
all that stuff. Um, but like going back to something that you said where you're going out and like if you see a big buck, you'll shoot them and all this stuff when you're staying with the cameras and things like that. Like with uh, a short amount of hunts and things like that, like I one of the things because we deal with a lot of new hunters too, and I think that there's like a balance between like the level of success that guys have. Guys, we said Danny Infalt, Andy May, like whoever you want to
Yep.
pick one. When they go out to kill. They know, and they put in all the time scouting and doing that stuff. But there's those hunts where you're sitting there and you like know things are wrong and you're just like hoping, like you're like, oh, there's always a chance. And I feel like when you get to those like very you have like very narrow window to kill a deer. Like you have to like choose the best opportunity, best win, best everything. And for me, like when my daughter was really young and she was all sad if I was going to go out hunting and stuff like that, like I decided to choose like the days that were really good. So if it was just like a marginal wind or something and I was going to just go hunt to hunt because I had an opportunity, then I didn't go and I stayed home. And that's where it comes back to like the universe thing because I feel like when I went out only on the times when things were right, like I felt like I was rewarded. And it was probably just because I went with all the right conditions, like with a
Yeah.
mindset of like, I'm going to kill, I have to kill today because I only have so much time. But I didn't waste the brownie points or whatever on days that were not good to hunt just because I could hunt. If you know that, if
Yeah,
that
so
makes sense.
that's kind of this year for me. Like and it's also been unseasonably hot for most of this season to almost like up until just recently. So it's kind of like it's 80 degrees out. Like I was like, do you want to go hunting? I'm like, no, it's 80 degrees. I'm just gonna do stuff here. There's not a big, I don't have a big need. Like if I had a big fur coat on, I'm not gonna be moving around a bunch either if I'm a deer. Like it's, you see people still kill them, but like not me. I again have not put in the due diligence to I don't have it all figured out. So I have enough figured out. I have a lot of assumptions that have been like validated. Like I know where they're bedding. I know how they're traveling through, but it's so thick. It's like they could filter out, 20 yards from where I was hoping they would filter out. So I'm still mostly right. But if I'm enough wrong just by sheer chance, I don't have an opportunity. So it's like, my wife, did you see any? Yeah, I saw some. Did you shoot it? Nope, didn't have a shot. It needed to come out here and it didn't. It's like this guy here came out where he was supposed to come out and it worked out. It's like that doesn't always happen. And when you only have so many hunts, it's like, yeah, well, if I only get like 3 to 6 hunts a season, it's just hard. And so that part's stressful too. I'm like, man, if I had more time, I would get it done. I would just get it done. I'm a get it done kind of guy. Like I get it done in our business and at work. Like I get shit done. I would get the deer hunting done, but you can only like they're deer. They do what deer do. They do deer things. They do deer stuff. Like you're not gonna. I'm not Jake Bush. I'm not that calculated. Like I don't know he's gonna take this literal trail today. Like I don't know how the fuck those guys figure that stuff out. Like I don't. I'm not
Time.
right. Yeah.
So for you, you've talked about a bunch of different styles of hunts that you've been, you canoe in, been hunting from the ground, doing all this stuff. Like, what is your like preferred way to hunt? Like your equipment, like because I know you use the latitude stuff. You hunt, you're talking about hunting from the ground, like you're hunting, these areas where you got cameras way back in there. Do you have like preset stands? Like for you, what's your preferred style?
Well, this is a new shift as of last season. Derek Melkor said something to me that just really struck a chord, and that's been the new approach and or how I think about things now, which is cool. And this is going to sound very cliche, I suppose, because it assumes there's hunting. So I'm hunting public land, so you can't leave stuff up. You got to set up and tear down the same hunt. So I have nothing preset. And I'm hunting a particular area that I think if there is pressure, the pressure is going to a very specific spot because it's like the picturesque, beautiful hardwoods with lots of shooting lanes and big, tall, mature trees you can set up in. And the stuff you see on TV and the old hunting shows where like it looks beautiful and there's deer because there's probably really nice like managed property. But in reality, the dozens of deer I've seen, including the big ones, aren't anywhere near that. They're all in this thick, disgusting, nasty shit where there's not anywhere to set up. And so what Derek had said is something along the lines of like, you got to hunt the areas that aren't huntable. And it's not a badassery thing or a go deeper thing. It's just like if there's nowhere to set up, then most other hunters aren't going to set up on it. He's also talked about rub clusters, which is different than a rub line or a signpost rub. Rub clusters it sounds like what it would sound like. It's a cluster of rubs in a general area, but it would indicate that a buck is killing time before he embarks in his, evening routine and, path of travel. He's just kind of up and he's mulling around. He's, working the trees in his bedding area by and large and kind of slowly working his way out. If you find one of those, you've probably found a bigger buck. Obviously, you can measure the rubs and all that stuff. That's a good area. And then you just got to backtrack out of that a little bit. And usually those areas, from what we've discovered and a lot of scouting and there's a lot of his YouTube videos on our page, our channel on YouTube, is like they're not really huntable. Like the trees you have to set up in are just they're skinny, they're not tall. It's not great at all. So like sometimes hunting from the ground is the only option you have. It's like a close quarters kill. Um, So that's where I've seen the most biggest bucks in the last couple of seasons in the shit that it's like not huntable. So like I'll set up on it however I can. And Greg Tubbs has said something for a couple of years now. He's like it's give and take. And so when I got busted by the 150 last year, I gave up nothing on scent at all. Like the wind couldn't have been more perfectly in my favor. There's not a snowball's chance in hell that deer ever smelled me. I didn't lay any scent down ahead of where I was. I didn't cross any deer paths. It was like a very short beeline to get to the tree I was in. I gave up nothing on scent. I gave up quite literally everything on visual. I was skyline like a MFer and didn't think about the positioning of my platform. I knew better. I'd assumed something incorrectly about where he was going to be coming from, and I could, of course, correct it when I saw another buck come from that direction, but I didn't. Um, so like he's like, well, sometimes you're gonna have to give up a little bit. You're gonna have to move in a little bit deeper, get a little bit closer, and you're gonna give up some scent to gain cover and visual. Or maybe it'll be a little bit of 50-50. It's like building your Call of Duty character. Like you might get more accuracy, but you're gonna get shittier penetration or lethality or whatever. So like those are the things I'm thinking about nowadays where, okay, well, here's the huge deer sign. Great. Shit, there's nowhere to set up. Old me would have been like, I'm gonna go to those hardwoods because I can shoot perfectly if a deer comes this way. And so then it was like, yeah, I'm just hoping on a fucking prayer that something comes by, and if it does, it'll be great. But I never saw anything. Like I wasn't seeing anything. And then I moved into these close quarters areas where it's like really thick, nasty, not huntable per se. And my increase of big deer sightings is like just blown up in a way that I never thought was. I'm like, oh my God, I figured it out, but I haven't figured out how to kill them yet. It's like, I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, they're really fucking hard to hunt here because it's not really easy. So I try to take what Greg said about like, there's always gonna be some give and some take. You're gonna have to give up some scent to gain some cover. You have to give up some cover to gain some scent. Like you gotta feel that out. You gotta push into where you think it's gonna be comfortable. Like if you push in too far, that deer might travel, it might filter out downwinded and you're screwed, but it might not. Um, so I mean, that's kind of my approach. What do I like? My mobile setup is as best as it's ever been. I've never been this efficient before. I'm the okayest hunter, so I will obviously mess any. I'm like basically Murphy's Law is what I should call myself because like anything I can mess up, I will. I've gotten very efficient and nimble and quick and quiet with my stuff, thanks to those guys and their innovation. Um, that being said, I hunted on the ground for many years before that technology had evolved because I'd hunted on tree stands before and it would like take me forever to set up and tear down. It was a big rigmarole. I'd get all crabby and pissed off. Like things were loud. It wasn't fun for me because I was just always annoyed about the setup and tear down. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna hunt from the ground. And I've killed deer that way and it was fun. I was like, I like this. I think it was right around the time like Whitetail Adrenaline came out anyway, so I thought it was cool. Um, Hunting from the
But
ground, I prefer not to, just because I feel like it's a pretty big disadvantage. It's really hard. You're right there at their eye level, so you don't get away with as much. But sometimes that's all you get. So you got to take what you can get for the encounter and the opportunity. So again, it's a bit of a trade-off. My preferred, I don't have a preferred. It's just whatever I could do. I mean, yeah, I guess I would prefer a really nice tree high up and comfortable, but that's just not possible all the time when you're trying to kill something of larger age class deer.
so what are you seeing consistently in these like unhuntable areas? Because like where are you finding them? Like, I mean, are they these marshes? Are they swamps? I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
those shitty parts exist in all of those. But I mean, when
Yep.
you're going out scouting, like if you're like looking on Spartan Forge or like whatever, like what is it that you're drawn to then? Because I
I'm
mean,
less on
that's
the
what.
maps and more boots on the ground. So like if I have ideas, but for me, like I don't know what to call it on that, but it's like this shrubbery brambles of shit that deer can move in and out of. It's shorter stuff. I don't know what they're called because I don't have the woodsmanship like Greg does. He could probably tell me exactly what those trees are called. I don't know what they're called, but for me, like personally, and this is just me, and everyone's got their shtick or their thing. It seems like the thing I've been drawn to and have been able to start to figure out for almost completely, like the same way I got this guy here and this guy here. It's like along rivers has been my jam, and it's the thick stuff as you're paddling down the river. You see the thick stuff right around the river, but like no one gets out to hunt that. They just keep going to the woods that they see on the map. And that's what I've found, like, man, get out and hunt that right there. Just figure it out. Like those are the spots where then you get and you see these rub clusters. Like it's like I've never seen so many rubs in my entire life in one concentrated spot. It's like, holy shit, every single tree in here is rubbed up. I posted a picture on my personal Instagram and Facebook of one of the rubs out of like a dozen, and it was wild, man. So again, I'm going in blind because my trail cams have all failed me because the battery I'd had the sensitivity too higher, so I took too many pictures and requested too many videos. Well, it didn't matter as much because I was excited, but I feel like I'm in it, and just it's hard to kill them. And I'm probably more of a rut hunter, like a pattern guy. Like the pattern I know now is that these deer are hitting this area right now, and I don't know if it's because everywhere else in public has pushed them to this edge and they feel safer back there and there's less pressure and it's harder to set up on, so no one's hunting it. But like there's no pressure where I'm hunting either. There's people hunting the plot, but not the area I'm in. So I feel confident. I'm always seeing stuff except for yesterday. I didn't see shit. So I don't know what that was all about. That was pretty sad. I didn't see anything.
Well, that's the fun part, at least for me, is like I like the no camera thing because I feel like you're chasing cameras, but you're chasing old pictures. You're chasing what happened yesterday or what happened
Yeah.
last week, and you're hoping that that's going to happen again because you have the same thing instead of like walking into the woods, looking at the sign and saying like, this is where I need to be right now. And I think for me, like that's the just as much as it is like antler or whatever, it's validation, right? So I would rather like have the validation of that I chose right, and for
Correct.
me,
Yeah.
I would say like I'm 100% like a rut hunter. I'm way more successful because it's just like if you can find deer and you just get downwind of doe bedding, and like it's funny that you say that, because I'm not hunting like in that shit that you're talking about, but like I have a deer like almost identical to the 8 point right here. Um that I killed walking in gray light, and I came up to this edge of unhuntable shit, and I climbed up a tree right on the edge of it, and then when I got up the tree there was rubs all along the whole thing, and I saw 2 bucks that morning and killed the bigger one, and but it was the rut and I was downwind of
Yeah, it all
bedding,
worked out. Yeah.
and it was just like the right spot. But you know it's funny you say that because there's guys that are methodical, that put in all the time, that put in all the, they know exactly what trail the deer is going to be on, and they hate the rut because the deer are unpredictable, but they're
Yeah.
predictable to guys like us that you're like, well, I just need to be, I know where they should be. And so if I sit here downwind of this bedding long enough, like they're going to come by and I'm going to kill them. But I don't need a camera to tell me that because they're going to be there on this wind, but they might not walk in front of the camera or
Yeah, I wonder
whatever,
if those guys would be as good if they didn't have the cameras. Like I want like there's states that are doing away with cell cams and all that. So it's like I don't I'm happy to have the cameras out when I had them. It was really cool. I'm just excited to see pictures of coyotes and deer and like I'm like, ooh, a picture. Oh, look, it's a freaking hawk landed here. Wow, it's really cool. Like I just think that's really neat. I'm not like analyzing it and keeping a journal and shit. Like oh, he's traveling this direction. So I was like, oh, food's over here, bed's over there. This makes sense in the morning. This makes sense at night. Okay, kind of patterned. I like if I wasn't out of state traveling, I could have gone in and maybe killed something because I was like, shit, they're out in the daylight. Like, oh my gosh. Um, that didn't happen this year because I didn't have the opportunity. I was gone. So now I'm back to doing what I normally do, flying in blind and hunting hot sign and hunting shit that's not huntable, apparently. That's the whole thing.
that's
Giving
that's
up what
the
I can and taking what I can as I get it. And it's kind of working out. Like for me, having just the sighting of a deer like that is enough to call it a successful hunt. Like my dad's like, dude, you're in it, man. You're playing the wind right. They're not seeing you, they're not hearing you. Like you're there. You just gotta keep at it.
yeah, and I think that that's the best. Like I said, it's just the validation of like being there. I think like unless like every time you're in them and you're just not killing them, like
That was
it,
last season. That's why I
you,
was so
you,
mad when I had my
you,
gun in my hand. I was like,
but you just got to take those wins, right? I mean, you just
yeah,
have to say, these are all the things that I did right. And, it's always, Every deer, for the most part that you see with a bow in your hand, you can kill with a rifle. And that's why we do it,
Mhm.
because it's not a crossbow, it's not a rifle. The deer can be 5 yards away and the deer can still win. You can do
Well,
everything
5 yards
right
away
and
is
the deer can
actually
still win.
hard because it's too close. You can't fucking breathe when they're that close. Like, my God. Um, actually, that had me thinking about the crossbow stuff. I was like, dude, if I had a freaking crossbow, just I'll just sit here on the ground ready to go. All you do is like, there's no more motion. It does make it easier. Um, if I'm gonna hunt from the ground in the thick stuff and I had a crossbow, I feel like, yeah, I probably have a couple dead deer by now.
It seems like a very
It's a,
okay thing to do.
it's a damn compound bow where I gotta do this stuff. And like, I'm like, damn it, that's a lot of motion. Like, I'm busting myself, you know?
Oh
So,
my. So what bow are you using right now?
which I got the Bear, the Persist is what I'm using right now.
And that's
So,
their flagship, right?
yeah, I accidentally got their flagship. I was gonna not get their flagship, and I wrong letter. One of the bow starts with a P, and I wrote the wrong name. So by the time I figured it out, they're like, "Shoot the friggin' flagship, man! You go nuts!" I was like, "Oh, well, that's really cool, yeah." But I killed with my Bear Empire is what it was called, a single cam older bear. That's what I got. Um, I think both my bucks with that are on the wall in here. And then I have another bear that I shot last year, and that's one I just couldn't get it done with. And it was not the bow's fault, it was my fault. So I did shoot at an 8-pointer last year and just clean missed him. I shot, I think, slightly over. If you watch the footage from this hunting show that we put out, the OKS Hunter show. I forget one of the episodes you'd see. It's called Mid-Season Meltdown, I think. You can see that F up right there. So
Yeah, I'm so you probably were trying to get the Paradigm then.
yeah, that might be right. Yeah. It wasn't the
Yeah,
last.
that's the one that we tested versus the lift. And I'm gonna be actually shooting that bow. I killed that doe with my compound when I was up in the tree. I noticed that the limb on my Bowtech is like delaminating or like
Oh,
cracked.
interesting.
So I
Shit.
was like, I texted John and I'm like, hey, you got to change that Paradigm, get it
Yeah.
set up for me because uh this is not good. So
Yikes. Yeah, not good at all.
I'm gonna ask you one question to finish this out. It's something that we haven't asked in a while. But for venison, what's your favorite recipe? What's your go-to?
Go-to tends to just be chili, but like ground. I've been really trying to perfect the sear in the cast iron on, like, some nice back straps or whatever loins, and I'm getting better at it. It's a really fine line of like, if you do cook it just too long, it fucks it all up. Because then it's not medium rare, and then it just gets a little bit more gamey and brown. So I want that really red meat in the middle, and getting that sear on there. So it's just, I use, not to be bougie or whatever. I'm not a vegan or anything. Obviously, I'm a freaking deer hunter, but I use like grass-fed organic butter, Kerrygold, get it on the pan real nice, and then just lots of salt on the meat, and get in there and just let it sear. Don't touch it, for like 3 minutes. Flip it, do it again. I try to get the sides and smoke the house to shit, and there's freaking grease everywhere from the butter. Get some mushrooms and onions in there, and that's my favorite thing. And if I'm really making a meal out of it, then it's mashed potatoes with the hand masher, the skin on there, lots of butter. But that's probably my favorite way to try to do a good job. I feel like I still not that great at it, but
Kind of hard to mess that up. I mean, you can that's a great meal no matter what.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I feel like we kind of covered everything that I wanted to cover. Just like I say, from like the community standpoint, from the like standards, from social media, all of that stuff. It I just feel like the message that you guys put out, and kind of the same thing like that we try to put out, is that yeah, you've said it before, like it's your tag, it's do what you want with it. But I think even more so, it's like let everybody else do what they want to do and have fun. And this is a community, um, a hunting community. Um, you know, we don't have such open arms for the crossbow hunters, but they're out there buying their tag too. So
Yeah, I
there's
actually have
that.
a lot of respect for the crossbow guys. They have enough awareness to know that they don't have the time to put the reps in. And if that's the case, it's the most fucking lethal thing you can kill with, other than a rifle. Like I think Raven's slogan was "Meet your next rifle." Like talk about controversial. So there's a spectrum to that whole thing, but I'm not gonna shun the guys that are putting an arrow right where they're aiming it and putting deer down. Like good, because if they got a cross or a compound bow, they're gonna. They, I've seen people shoot crossbows that have never shot a crossbow or a compound. And they're like, "Well, I'll try a compound," and they're intimidated by it. They're scared of it. They don't know what to do with it. They fucking don't hit the target at all. You put a crossbow in their hands out of the box and they're hitting the freaking bullseye, you know? So at least from an ethical standpoint, if you want to choose a moral ethical argument, there's not one to be had. And so I'm not going to be mad at those guys for that per se.
Oh, I could have that argument all day long when Raven's saying like, look at our 100-yard accuracy. Like there's there's something to be said about like
So
how
right, there's a
far is
difference
it?
between promoting 100-yard shot, but it's also like showing that if you can hit the bullseye at 100 yards, your 20-yard shot should be fucking game
Yeah.
on. Like
So yeah. But I mean, I understand they're showcasing their product, but like
yeah.
then you got old Jimmy out
Then you
there.
got
I
everyone
mean,
else going, I'm going to kill that deer at 100 yards. Right.
yeah,
Wouldn't recommend that
yeah.
at all.
With
In
a
fact, like I'm not shooting. I'd be hard pressed to shoot past 30 yards. Like if it's at 30 yards, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Like not great. But I do 3D archery. We do our event, and every now and again they got the 50 or 40-yard target and so forth. And I'm like, I'll hit it, and it's good. But that thing's sitting still, not moving. There's no variables. There's a clear shooting lane. It's all different. Like I'm taking my time. There's no adrenaline. If I'm gonna do that with a deer that's gonna duck an arrow and there's a twig in the way and I'm pumped full of adrenaline, like probably not gonna go great.
yeah. Yeah. So you talked about your event there, and we talked about a bunch of different things. You've mentioned a lot of things about the network. Like, what's going on over there at the OKest Hunter? Like, if they want to follow along with you and everything that's going on, like, and there's a lot. Like, what?
Yeah.
Where do you point them?
Just the web okshunter.com. You can find all the podcasts on the network from that hit the website. You can get to YouTube from there to follow along on the what we're calling the Office of Deer Hunting TV show. I just didn't want another over dramatized whitetail show. There's a lot of great content and great producers out there, but we're not hunting the mountains. It doesn't need to be that dramatic. These are deer in the Midwest. So I think actually someone commented on one of our episodes on YouTube and said, more BS in here than hunting. I'm like, yeah, you're exactly right.
You got
It's
it.
exactly what we're going for. I think that's a compliment, actually. Like, I think you're mad about it, but I'm happy to hear it because like that you're spot on. There's more BS in hunting. So if you want more BS in hunting, then you should watch our stuff. If you want hunting, go watch everyone else.
So,
But we're
what
trying
podcasts are on the network?
12. So we got two more are loading up right now. And then a third. So we'll be at 15 probably by the end of the year. The one that's coming up is like firearm centric. We don't have one dedicated just firearm stuff. So that one's going to be launching, I think, in the next by November 15th, if I'm not mistaken. And then we have Boyer podcast, which I mentioned. He's a maker, so he chopped down a freaking tree and make a bow out of a tree. And he knows about all the different types of wood from here to Timbuktu and how to do stuff. He's a Marine also. So if you're not connected with Matt, you should check him out. His Instagram handle is Songbird Stick Bows. Just a really genuinely good human too. Like check out the podcast. I didn't even know that the word bowyer was a thing until I met him. We got the OK's Trapper, Zach out of the bottom of the Sawtooth Mountain in Idaho. Pretty neat fella. Left the white picket fence in Virginia, sold a tech company, and put it all on seven. If you will. He just went all in on living the trapper lifestyle. Really neat guy. Great podcast. We got the OKest Fisher, Camp OKest, which isn't about camping. It's just a general cultural, like all the OKS Hunter stuff, all the people on the network. Up Duck, it's like pheasant and duck with a through line of dogs. So if you want to know what kind of puppy to pick for your next hunting dog, or you're trying to figure out how to train them for hunt test or bird hunt or pheasant hunt, duck boats, all that stuff. Those guys talk about all that. I'm missing everybody else. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of them. It's like when I try to remember all my groomsmen at my wedding, there's 8 of them, and I was like, I'm missing like 3 people every time. I just have a bad memory. Yeah, Western Territory podcast. Levi Carey, he's a guide out west in what is it, Wyoming. So he's like got lots of bear stories and some pretty cool guests that he talks to. OK's Cook's another one. So if you're talking about your favorite meal, those guys are really great. It's not all just wild game, it's just all sorts of stuff like how to make sourdough or like, other things too that, if we're trying to just be better in the kitchen with the food that we have, like it's a good show to listen to. They're not chefs, they're just like us, but they're trying to learn how to do better. Their show is very polished though, because like one of the guys owns a videography and commercial photography business. The other guy's a marketer by trade. So their stuff's like way better than ours. It's like very well put together. So very okay in the messaging, but how it comes through is very high quality. So yeah, there's a lot to check out. The show is fun. We have our first film coming out soon. We've never done a film, but we sent Derek and Greg to Oregon to do a blacktail hunt with a guy named Lyndon Lauren, who wrote the book The Hunter's Hellspan. And we sent along Keegan Kettle, one of our videographer guys that we work with, to film it all. So hopefully that'll be out before the end of the year as well. And I'm looking forward to see how that comes together, actually, because they both tagged out. And it's a pretty okay situation that unfolded with all that. So it's right on brand.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, out of your, little amount of time that you do have, sit down and talk with us today. So, thanks, man. I always appreciate it.
Yeah, you
Always
betcha, bud.
enjoy.
Thank you very much.